I'm going to show you what it looks like to log into the Connexus or Connections Academy website once your child is enrolled. I'm going to log in using my daughter's account, and you're going to see basically what she sees in the course of the day and the different communications points on the Connexus Academy website. Right when it opens, it takes her to her lessons. It is about 1:30 rounding up. We've already had lunch, gotten haircuts, and it's just been a really relaxed day. All she has had today is quick checks and review. On days when she has tests, it will take her a lot longer than 4 hours or 5 hours because she has to do review and study for the tests. If you go into the planner, this will show you all of her lessons for the week. And the little check mark shows you if you have completed the lesson or if you haven't. There's also a little number by some of the lessons, and that shows how many days the student has to complete that lesson. You can put in your own schedule items. We almost never use the virtual library. We almost never use any of the help links that they have or any of the extra academic tools that they have because honestly, we like having a life. She likes being active and being out, and so that's what she prefers to do. So clicking back on home, I want to bring out the teachers list. Now on a parent's login, you don't see the list of teachers, you only see the homeroom teacher, so they act as point when it comes to communication. But you see that she has several different teachers. She'll have 2 teachers listed for social studies or 2 teachers listed for math. And what happens is in a live lesson, when she goes on, there will be 2 teachers for about 70 students is what I've seen in a math live lesson. And so you're talking about a teacher who's actually presenting information and a teacher who is monitoring the students' comments and students' questions and trying to make sure that they are able to address all of the issues that might be coming up with the students on the message board. There's also the to-do list, and under each teacher you have the teacher's information, a link to their email, their telephone number, and a click to their live lesson room. So clicking on My Courses will bring you into an overview of all of the different classes. It will allow you to see the grades, it will allow you to see links to the message board, and the percentage of the course that has been completed. It looks pretty brutal right now with her grades. Let me just say that in the course of 2 weeks, a grade can drop like 2 letter grades or more because of the way they weight the grades. So let me give you an idea. Discovering music. So I've gone into grades. That's what that link is to, my gradebook. I click on the subject, and then it pulls up the different assignments that have been completed and that also need to be completed. Now, if you look at this column right here, weight, that lets you know how much that particular activity counts toward the overall grade. Now you'll notice that there are a bunch of quick checks, but they don't count toward the grade in this class. In other classes they do, but this is art. What counts is the test. So let's say your student takes a test, understands all the material, gets a 90%. Great. Then the student takes another test, doesn't really understand the material or makes some kind of mistake, and they get an F. So your student's grade automatically bombs from like an A down 2 letter grades to a C. And that happens in the course of 1 day. That's perhaps kind of like a brick and mortar school, but I think in my experience, brick and mortar schools, traditional schools, actually tend to have more assignments and a better way to balance grades than everything going toward or everything being based on a test. As far as assignments, what the students deal with are quick checks, which sometimes are graded and sometimes are not graded, quizzes, which always are graded, and depending on the class that you have, sometimes the teacher says you can use the book, sometimes you can't. A lot of times the teacher will allow you to use the book on a quick check. So quick checks, quizzes, and portfolios. The portfolios generally count toward a large percentage of the grade. And if you look up here, you can see what percentage of the grade your quizzes and your portfolios and your tests will go toward. The GT literature study happens to not have tests because it is a literature class. They use portfolios more than they use tests. You create a song, or you draw a picture, or you write a letter to someone. Math is one of those classes that has some dramatic swings where, 1 minute it's 100% on a quick check, and then the next minute it's a 67%. I've noticed a lot of real variance in my child's grades. Let's go ahead and get in now to a lesson. So once you're in your grade book, you can click on the lesson and it will allow you to review. You can also get shortcuts to the different lessons in the unit if you wanted to do it this way. Here we are in a normal lesson for social studies. You'll have little questions, little pop-up answers. There will be general information. They tell you what you're supposed to be learning. They give you keywords. And then they'll have videos that you link to either on BrainPop or YouTube or Discovery, another learning channel. And so you'll watch video, you'll read, you'll answer some questions. You'll sometimes look at your textbook. They will suggest using your workbook. When you become a student with Connections, they will send you a big box of materials. There's art materials and textbooks and workbooks and paper and all kinds of different materials that theoretically you're going to be using throughout the course of the year in doing science labs or art projects or whatever it is that you're going to be doing in your particular grade, in your particular school, in your state. And then it will have a suggestion of something you're supposed to do with your learning coach. That is your parent, or if they're hiring someone to be your tutor, then that would be your tutor. So you are supposed to do some type of interactive thing with your parent. Be aware of that. Doing online school, unless you're considerably, older and capable of being totally self-taught, you are going to be using your parent as a resource and as a teacher and a tutor. You have, of course, your opportunity to submit your portfolio. You do that a lot of the time through Dropbox. Pay attention to what format they want your portfolio in or your assignment in. Sometimes it's PDF, sometimes it's Word doc, sometimes it can be a JPEG or even a video file, but you need to be careful with video file size because they have limited space to which you can upload. I think it's like 125 megabytes. Which is practically nothing. And then once you finish your lesson, you just check the little box and say, I've done it. You've got an electronic version of the textbook here if you're on the go, if you're traveling, super convenient. Of course, that takes you to the message board. If there were a change in the lesson plan, there would be a little eraser somewhere in here showing that there's a lesson modification. And then, of course, you can go to help. You also have the option, instead of doing it all online, is you can print each lesson if it's easier for you to read a paper copy. That gets expensive. I don't know why anyone would want to really do that. So that gives you an idea of some of the different modes that they use to get the information to you. Videos, a lot of text, textbooks, workbooks, and then expecting you to interact with your learning coach and having the learning coach or parent head that up and lead that discussion with you. What I find is very helpful, especially on math, is to come in and look at the quick checks and understand, okay, where you missed a concept and making sure that you know how to answer the problem correctly. You have this section of learning with two quick checks and a quiz. So the quiz covers the material from the quick checks, and right here, 2 quick checks, a portfolio, and a quiz. So we've got a 67 and a 67 on the quick checks, meaning that there's some comprehension flaws. But if I go in and I give my student support and we go over some concepts, then she can pull off an 80 on the quiz. And the 80 is going to actually help her to maintain a higher grade. As a student, you may be wondering, well, what happens if I fail one of the tests? Like there's a 59% right there. Nobody wants that. So what you can do is you can go in and you can retest. It does vary by class, but generally it's on a test or a portfolio, those two items that are weighted more heavily. Like if you look, the portfolio is worth 15% of the total grade and the test is worth 55% of the total grade. You're able to bring those up to where you can get at least a 70 in place of the 59. They'll do like a retest class, so you have to watch the class before you're able to go and do a relearn on the test or a retest. Once you've relearned, then you can take the test again and bring your grade up to a 70. And the idea is to maintain it from there on out, to do well on the quizzes, to do well on the rest of the tests, so that you can have at least, a C average. Looking at an actual test, I can go in as a student and I can look and see almost immediately, what did I get wrong? And the way they show that is by the X is the answer that the student put that was wrong, and then the 1 point shows the answer that was right. So the student can go in and look and say, okay, well, that's supposed to be the answer. How did they get that answer? Math tests will also have essay questions, which is nice. So on the essay question, you have a potential, 1 point or 2 points, and the teacher will grade it, and the teacher will actually leave a bit of feedback on that one question. But for the rest of the questions, you don't really have feedback unless you go in and you do watching the relearn video and then retesting in the math. So how do you get to do a relearn? Let me go in. There are a couple of different ways to get to this. I'm just going to go and click on the message board link from the lesson plan. And this will take me directly to the math message board. An alternative way of getting to this message board, just let me show you right now, is come into the push pin right here. The push pin sends you to your message boards for all of your different classes. And if you miss a live lesson, so a class will have one live lesson a week. If you miss a live lesson on the day of the live lesson, then they'll usually record it and stick it in a folder on the message board so that you can watch that class and make it up in a manner of speaking. It's pretty easy to see where the live lesson recordings are because it's Part B live lesson recordings. Some classes, they stash it by unit, and it's not going to be consistent with every single class, which can be frustrating, but it was well marked here for math. And so just to give you an idea of what a live lesson is like. So you do need to make sure that your system is compatible with Flash because Adobe Connections uses
Hey
Flash.
guys, you're welcome.
So you see that they have two teachers. One of them is watching the feed. The other one is presenting the material. And you don't see any of the student chat in the live lesson. So referencing a question, the teacher has to repeat what the question is if you're even going to know what they're talking about. They do have interactive little competitions on Kahoots, and they have questions sometimes in the live lesson. With a recording, you can actually skip ahead or go back or say, well, this is the part that I didn't understand. So you can kind of skip ahead in the lesson and try to relearn that. And so once you go and you watch it again, then you can do the retest. And sometimes you need to email your teacher for a link to that. Sometimes they'll just send it to you right away. So that gives you an idea. You have all of your assignments. You have all of your classes. You have all of your grades available. You have class communication, class notes, any lesson modifications, and you also have webmail. And your teachers absolutely do communicate with you through the webmail, so that's important to check. So I hope that kind of gives you an idea of an average day in the life of an online learning student. Let's see, yesterday my daughter had 3 tests, and the nice thing is that she was able to say, you know what, I don't want to take that one test today. So she studied for 2 tests, left the 3rd test until this morning, and then took that 3rd test this morning. So there is some flexibility in your schedule. If you feel like you need that, if you have a ton of tests hitting one day, you've got time to take that. Of course, assuming that you are not limited by the end of the school year, you do have some flexibility in when you take your tests, when you take your quizzes. That can be good and that can really be bad. You need to make sure that you're disciplined enough to be staying on top of all of the material. Hope this helps.